Okay, hello class. In this video, I will briefly explain how to write equals method and copy constructors. Um, Several of you asked me this question, and I think it's a good thing that we would explain to the entire class. So first, how to write equals. If you want to know more about this topic, read section 11.10 in the book. But in general, the purpose of writing equals is to compare if the calling object is exactly the same as the object that is passed in as a parameter to the equals method. And if you look at the object class, and we know object class is the parent class, is the ancestor of any class in Java. So if you look at the prototype of equals method in object, it is comparing the calling object with this parameter, which is of type object, and it is doing a shallow copy, right? This is a shallow copy. And pretty much that's all object can do, because it doesn't know what kind of data it has. So a shallow copy is the only way to go. But this is not what we should do for the classes that we write. So when we write a class and we want to implement the equals method, number one is we are in general 99.99% of the time trying to override the equals method. So this means the prototype of your equals method has to take an object reference, because you are overriding the one that you get from the object. Excuse me. And this method should return a Boolean type, either true or false. So if the calling object is exactly the same, which means has the same data as the object that is passed in, excuse me, then you are supposed to return true, or else you return false. But there is a problem, right? Because an object reference O can point to anything, any object. And when you write the equals method, for example, for the circle class, you really want to compare the calling object circle with another circle that is passed in. So the first thing you want to verify is, did I have a circle object pointed by O? So this is where the instance of come in place. So we want to verify, is the object that O points to is of type circle, for example. And this type, you should substitute this type with the type of the class. That owns the equals method, right? So if you're writing equals method for circle, this type should be circle. And then you compare the internal data of the object. So in here, you should use deep copy. For example, for the circle class, it has a radius, it has a center, right? The type of the center is point. So if you want to compare radius, you can just use equals. So this dot radius equals to O dot radius, right? But keep in mind, O is of type object. You may want to do typecast before you call a certain method. And similarly, you want to compare the point. But when you compare point, this dot point, you shouldn't use double equal, right? Because this is a shallow comparison. You need to compare the data that belongs to the point. How do I do that? Keep in mind, point also has its own equals method. So you can definitely utilize the equals method from the point class to make the comparison. So two things. Number one is, for primitive, use double equal. Fairly straightforward. If it's a reference, compare data, and also make use of its own equals. And don't forget to do typecast in here. So when you do the typecasting, make sure you in here you use typecast, because O is a type object. For example, if you want to use O to call some method that doesn't belong to the object class, you may see a compile error. So make sure you use typecasting properly when you do the comparison. And in here, if the instance of returns false, then I just return false, right? So this is the equals method. A few things that I really want to make sure that everyone understands how to do it. Now for the copy constructor, we should always use deep copy. Okay, this is kind of always for this class. For example, if you look at this test class, it has a point, has an integer. This is almost the same as a circle, right? So this is a copy constructor. It passes a reference to another object. So what you want to do is you want to make an identical copy of the object that is passed in via the reference. If it's primitive, just assign. If it is a reference, if it is an object, you shouldn't say this.p equals ref.p. That is incorrect. You should use the copy constructor again to make a copy of the object that reference.p points to, and let this.p point to this newly created object. Okay. Don't use shadow copy. And I think those are the two things that I want to address: equals method and copy constructor. Hopefully it is helpful for you, and have fun with the PA.